Hello and welcome everybody to this virtual gathering for a particularly special and significant day on the wheel of the year and also on the wheel of our lives. So I called this gathering honoring Solstice and Herbal Alchemy. So that is hopefully what we will do today together, is to find different ways of remembering the significance of the summer solstice, and also perhaps leaving a little more closely connected with certain plant allies, herbal allies that are really here to support us during the season of summer, and herbs that are very cooling and soothing to our beings during the heat of the summer. I'm very happy that you're here, and let's begin with some breathing so we can all come present into this space and time. Just take a moment. If you're sitting in a chair, let your body settle and begin to connect with your breath. So you might choose to count either 4 seconds in and then 4 seconds out, or perhaps breathing in to a count of 5 and then gently breathing out to a count of 5. So see if you can find a number that feels easeful. We'll just take about a minute. And each time we exhale, we can set the intention to gently release tension in the body and in the mind. And then we'll take a hand and place a hand on the heart, the chest area, the heart being one of the organ systems that relates to the season of summer and the fire element. So if you like, you can place your other hand on top, coming into this mudra of compassion. And compassion really being one of the gifts of our heart when it is in balance. Compassion, passion, joy, the capacity to connect, to have intimacy with others, certainly intimacy with ourselves. So placing your hands on your heart, let's take a few more breaths, specifically into the chest. As you breathe in, sensing, feeling, imagining the heart opening, the chest expanding, and then exhaling, sensing, feeling, or imagining the heart, the chest softening. And then I invite you to take a moment to recall an experience, a recent experience, where you felt appreciation or gratitude, felt ease in your heart. So I don't want it to be something relatively simple. You found yourself appreciating maybe a flower or a pet. And whatever that memory is, recall that in your body and your mind. And let yourself actually experience that feeling now. As best you can. Feeling appreciation or gratitude, wonder, maybe love. And then take just a couple more moments and breaths, letting that feeling move through your whole body with your breath. And then very slowly, we can begin to come back. You might even rub your palms across the chest, feeling the warmth of your hands, the weight of your hands, and then bring your hands down to the thighs and offer yourself some compression to ground. Slowly opening the eyes, taking in the sights and then the sounds of the room that you're in. So that can be a relatively simple practice to nourish and I'll say strengthen the capacity of our hearts to be in a state of coherence, in a state of regulation. Just simply breathing into the heart, into the open space of the heart. 5 times, 10 times. You can do it with your eyes open. You can do it if you're in traffic or you're feeling frustrated. It can really help to slow us down and to bring us back into a state of regulation. So happy summer solstice, happy strawberry full moon, happy Thursday. To have the full moon and solstice fall on the same day is unique. I believe it only happens every 19 years, something to this extent. And so it's a very special time astronomically. I will let you do your own research on that. I can't really speak too much more specifically to that. But there are very amazing, very cool things that we can actually see in the night sky when the full moon falls on the summer solstice. And so this day in and of itself, summer solstice, is the peak, the height of the yang energies, right? The height of the sun, our solar power, that which allows all of us, all living beings, to grow, to become, and to step into this place of the full flowering of our hearts. In Chinese medicine, in the 5-element tradition of Chinese medicine, which you may already be familiar with, but as a reminder or as a first time, the 5 elements are fire. Well, I'll start with fire because that's where we are. The season of summer corresponds to the fire element. Late summer, which is a 5th season, is the earth element. And then autumn is the metal element. Winter is the water element. The most yin, of course, the most dormant time of year. And then we have spring, which is correlated to the wood element. And so spring is called lesser yang, meaning it's a yang season. It's a dynamic season of growth, but it is not as yang as summer. So summer is greater yang, and then autumn is considered lesser yin. So autumn and winter are yin seasons, but winter is greater yin. So we have right now summer solstice, which of course is directly across from winter solstice. So winter solstice being the water element, the yin, the darkness, the time to connect with the internal flame, and summer solstice being the most yang, the most solar energy available to us. And also we embolden the fire in our hearts by making connections external to ourselves, by sharing the full flowering of our hearts with others. In five element tradition, we're in the fire element, and there are related organ systems. So our organ systems are the heart, and the heart is paired with the small intestine. And then there's two other organ systems that don't necessarily have a direct correlate in Western medicine or in Western anatomy, physiology. And those are the triple warmer, sometimes referred to as the triple burner. It helps to regulate, to keep homeostasis in the three parts of the body, upper, middle, and lower. So triple warmer, triple burner. In some ways, there's aspects of our endocrine system that are similar to the functions of the triple warmer. And then we have the pericardium. And the pericardium is the little envelope, the connective tissue that surrounds our hearts. And in Chinese medicine, the heart is the empress or the emperor to our whole internal, I'll say, queendom or kingdom. So the heart has not only one, but three support systems. So all of the other organ systems in Chinese medicine have one. So it's like the stomach and the spleen, the liver and the gallbladder. But the heart has three helpers. And that really speaks to how important it is to tend, to nourish, to protect our hearts and the gifts, the many, many gifts that flow from our hearts when it is in balance, when it is feeling safe, when it is feeling joy and wonder and presence. So the heart is really the queen of your castle, so to speak. And the heart is very much about receptivity. The heart is the ultimate state of receptivity in Chinese medicine, of being. So here we are on the summer solstice, giving honor to how the sun, how that spark of heaven lives within our own body, within our hearts, and then flows out into our blood, right? The heart, primary responsibility of circulation in the body and the mind. And we can't talk about circulation without thinking about blood and the concept of blood. And in Chinese medicine, blood is so precious. It's such a precious substance because it is not only the red hemoglobin flowing through our veins, it is considered to house our consciousness and to imprint our spirit. Like our spirit is imprinted into our blood. So our spirit flows through us as the heart pumps. And our emotions also live in our blood. So the blood houses consciousness. It also like imprints, it's very unique, like our heart's unique stamp into the blood, your unique stamp. And it also there was one last thing that I said. So it's, oh yeah, and it stores our emotions. So blood is very precious. So we must be mindful certainly of how we're tending our heart, but also our blood. And I'll get more into that shortly in terms of herbs and foods and activities and lifestyle. This entire like long, beautiful, what are they called? Slideshows that I created for this. And then also, I'm wanting to be somewhat spontaneous because that is another one of the gifts of the heart. When the heart is present and open, it allows for the gift and the potential joys and synchronicities of spontaneity. So we talked about the heart being I don't know if I said the phrase in Chinese medicine is the supreme controller. Like it has supreme control over the well-being of our whole self. I like to think emperor, empress, which is also used interchangeably. Um, okay, so I invite you to take a moment before we go into more, and I think I will show some slides more like getting us up here to stay down in this area. Um, to take a moment, and if you have a pen and pencil, wonderful. You might want to take some notes or come back to this later. But since we are at this very special marker, full moon, summer solstice, it's really an important invitation to reflect on the first half of our year. So I'm considering from December 21st to now, that being the first half of the wheel of the year. And so I invite you to maybe just make some brief notes now of highlights or places where you're very aware of growth. You're very aware of the the flowering in your life around you. Maybe it's in your career, maybe it's with family, maybe it's with your beloved pets or in your garden. Um, so just take some moments to jot down ways in which you are connecting with the heart of your heart and experiencing its growth and beauty. And remembering to be gracious with yourself. Browsing scented gardens over the past few weeks. He loves taking time to water and look at what's happening. Beautiful. And how lovely it is to pause and to be in nature. And I believe that each of those, like an act of pausing and appreciation, is a prayer of gratitude, a prayer of appreciation, a moment of appreciation. Um, so that's beautiful. And then I also find that it's very important and healing to take a few moments to honor any heart pains that we've experienced. So certainly that can be loss, that could be betrayal, shock, fright, um, any heart pains. And again, they could be smaller heart pains or they could be very significant. Either way, to take a moment to honor those heart pains as well. And what's coming to me now is how something I heard years ago for the first time, or I guess received it in a way that I really took it in was while the energy of summer is expansive, it's incredibly expansive, right? It is in springtime we rise up, and then in summer we expand, like the flower actually opens in summer. So it's a very expansive energy. It can be very joyful in summer, can also be overwhelming and burn out, and I'll get into that later. But there's also a way in which, because the energy of summer relates to our heart and it's expansive, sometimes it's in the summer that we become aware and are invited to heal heart pains in our past. So something else to hold as you walk through this time where the energy of the heart is very expansive. The possibility for healing our heart pains is available to us. So yeah, sometimes it can feel like there are too many heart pains to mention, to acknowledge, and that's okay if that is so, but I think it's like putting our hand on our heart and taking some breaths and saying, like, I see you, I acknowledge that pain to ourselves, so that we can make space for, in the appropriate time, more joy, more authentic connection, more authentic connection with ourselves and how we want to express and connect in the world with others. Okay. I'll say a word about some words about the small intestine. So the heart certainly has so much, both folklore around it, magic, beauty, and then obviously the incredible, remarkable physiological roles and functions that our heart plays in our body. And the small intestine is like lesser revered, I'll say. Yet in Chinese medicine, we understand that the small intestine is actually working in deference, in service of the heart. It's like a protector in Chinese medicine. It protects what the heart receives. So what I mean by that, more from a physiological standpoint, is the small intestine has the role of sorting, right? We eat our food, the stomach does its job, it sends it to the small intestine, and the small intestine has to sort out what is pure and what is impure. Now, if we take that very physiological role, but we apply it to its role with the heart, the small intestine has to sort out what relationships are pure, or I'll say in service of our heart. What relationships, I'll say, taint or create imbalance for our hearts. So the small intestine in Chinese medicine, again, has an emotional and psycho-spiritual role as well as its physiological role. So our small intestine is very important. And heart also has a lot to do with our thoughts. So it's also like, what are we thinking about ourselves? Are we being kind? Are we being generous to ourselves? Or do we tend to, diminish our gifts? Do we tend to, maybe we've internalized something from the past that someone else was doing. But ways that we can strengthen our small intestine, certainly food, and we'll look at that. But also it's like really talking kindly to ourselves, like nourishing ourselves with kind thoughts, feeding ourselves kind thoughts. So Small intestine is an amazing organ on all the levels. Okay. Let's go to, let's see what Gail said. Oh, yes, so many heart pains. Yes. I'm glad they came this time of year. Exactly. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it won't be scary. Share the screen. Oh, here it is. All right. Again, if you've been with me before, you've heard me speak about energetic resonance. And that's what, like, the whole premise, I'll say, of maybe I shouldn't say the whole premise, but largely what Taoism, Chinese medicine, five element tradition is based upon. It's based upon the ancient seers who were so in tune with the rhythms of nature and their surrounding and the energies of their surroundings. Like they really, their, I'll say, mode of communicating was through feeling, sensing. And so this medicine is based on energetic resonance. Yeah, and I'll say more about that. And of course, I always want to say and impress upon everyone that anything I share is simply something you already know. It's like we carry this intelligence of the universe, of the cycles and the seasons and the moon. We carry it deep in our bodies. So we might not have intellectual access to it, or it might not be readily in our consciousness, but over time we can begin to access it and bring it more into consciousness. And okay. So this is a beautiful quote from one of the classics of Chinese medicine. The 3 months of summer are called the period of luxurious growth. I mean, isn't it beautiful? Like that's how it feels in summer. That's how it can feel in summer, right? Like the strawberries, there's so much lushness and beauty and like smelling the flowers. Things are green and like so full of dynamism and vibrance and luxury. The breaths of heaven, so that's like the energy of heaven and earth are intermingling, and everything is beneficial, and everything is in bloom and begins to bear fruit. So again, we can ask ourselves, sort of what we did a few moments ago, but like, are you aware of, perhaps in small ways, small and powerful ways of how you are flowering in your own life? And so we can think of that both in the course of 1 year, right? Like one turn of the wheel of the year, or we can think of it as, springtime is like youth, right? Springtime is youth, and summer is really more middle age. It's coming to that place of really offering one's essence, one's heart, one's flower to the world. And again, that can be through career, it can be through relationship, it can be in many, many ways. But are you aware of that in your life, how you are maturing? It's such a big part of keeping our hearts healthy, alive, dynamic, open, balanced. And if we are not, that is okay. And then the question becomes, how do I begin to tend myself so that I can really, in time, feel that I'm offering the heart of my heart to the world? Yeah, so I just mentioned how summer corresponds to middle age. It's a time of reaching maturity within our own life cycles. And then there is the particular question of this summer. Given what has already come, what has already transpired, how do I care for myself? I'm not going to go through that. So let's come back and into some more of the correspondences for the fire element. And organ systems I've shared: heart, small intestine, pericardium, triple warmer. And the heart is the primary organ network for fire. And you can read more there. Heart and pericardium are yin. As I mentioned, the energetic movement is expansion. Are you experiencing expansion within your own body and mind? The sound is laughing. So, right when we are feeling joyful, when we are being spontaneous or playing or being silly, we make the laughing sound. And that laughing sound is what in turn even nourishes the heart more. The heart governs the blood and the blood vessels. The emotion is joy. Sadness, which is very appropriate in certain seasons of our lives. When it is prolonged, though, when we don't tend to our sadness, it becomes injurious, very injurious to our hearts. The climatic factor of summer is heat. The sensory organ is the tongue. It's about speech. Like, how do we bring what is in our hearts up through the throat and out into the world? The face is another way we can see, the complexion is another way we can see, or I see, like in the treatment room, I work to see the complexion as a way of understanding what's happening with the heart and the heart blood. The taste is bitter, and the bitter taste can be drying. It's also draining, and it clears excess heat. And in that way, it can become cooling to it is cooling to our systems. The time of day that relates to the fire element, because there are 4 organ systems, there are 2 times of day. So the heart is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Small intestine is 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then in the evening, 7 to 9 p.m. is 7 to 9 p.m. is pericardium. And then triple warmer is the 2 hours following that. So we think about evening, and if we're really wanting to design our lives in harmony with this 24-hour cycle of the Chinese body clock, we can ask ourselves, like, okay, in the evenings, am I having dinner with a friend or a loved one or even my pet? Like, is there connection there? Could I create or invite some friends over or loved ones over and create a really beautiful summer meal together where we're connecting and sharing stories, people that you feel safe with? So all of those things really help to feed our hearts and feed and nourish the fire energy within us. Yep, so I mentioned about the Chinese clock. You'll receive this if you like. I can certainly share this with you. Pericardium is 7 to 9, and that's a great time to socialize. It's also a wonderful time, according to this theory, to the Chinese clock, to make love. One of the alternate names for the pericardium is circulation sex. So it also has to do with circulating our blood throughout our bodies, the lower part of our body. So it is an ideal time for making love and relaxing. A good time to relax. And if you can, be with loved ones or call a friend. And then the triple warmer is 9 to 11, lesser heat of the day, beginning to move into deep rest. So as we think about this concept of nourishing ourselves in summer, we want to consider, of course, like what to cultivate. And compassion is top of the list. So compassion with passion. Do we look towards ourselves with loving kindness? Do we look towards others with loving kindness? As I said in the beginning, when we did our meditation, that when our heart is in a state of dysregulation, I should say this, when we are in a state of dysregulation, feeling angry, frustrated, resentful, full of grief, like deep grief, a lot of worry, any of those strong emotions create an imbalance within us, within our emotions, also our flow, and also I'll say the metronome of our hearts. So when our heart is out of balance, we are in a state of dysregulation. It's very difficult to practice and cultivate compassion, towards ourselves and towards others. So the first thing to do is to come back, cultivate a breathing practice where you're really nourishing your heart and helping to regulate your central nervous system. Joy, cultivate joy. And sometimes joy can seem like this really big thing. So maybe it's contentment or being in the present moment, doing something, being in nature somewhere that awakens your sense of wonder in the world. Practicing being vulnerable. And again, letting the small intestine and the pericardium help govern who you practice being vulnerable with, right? So sometimes a sign of the pericardium being out of balance is when we are too quick. It's like we just want to share all of ourselves really quickly with someone, and they may not be the best person to receive our vulnerable self. So practicing being vulnerable. And propriety, the word propriety is similar to the word maturity. The rose has thorns, right? So the rose has thorns to keep those, it's about boundaries. So rose medicine, thorns, it is about keeping boundaries to protect the flower. And so with our own hearts, again, like small intestine, pericardium, they in some way, they're not thorns, but they are meant to be levels of protection before anything can get into the heart and injure the heart. Gratitude and then gratitude. So these are things that we all know, right? But they're great. I mean, I always need my reminders about gratitude practices, appreciation, cultivating compassion. And then, of course, what to avoid and limit, things we typically also know. And are particular to summer. So in summer, if you're someone who tends to isolate, again, find small ways to make connections with people who you feel safe with. It might be going to a dance class or a yoga class or something else that's within your area of interests. Avoid any type of excess, and moderation is always paramount. Heat and overexcited. So getting overexcited will strain the heart. We want to, again, find that balance. We don't want to go we don't want the fire to get too big, right? Fire gets too big, it's dangerous. Fire starts to really fade, then things get cold inside. So finding a way to balance your fire, and your fire is uniquely yours. And then another thing is consistently working through lunch, because remember the time for heart is 11 to 1 and small intestine is 1 to 3. So constantly working through lunch can be injurious to the heart and small intestine. All right. We're at 211. We are going to just look at a couple more slides, and then we're going to do our tincture making. All right. So joy, back to joy, right? Like joy regulates all of the functions of our heart. And that's from the incredible herbalist, teacher, writer, author, Kat Mayer. Her book is called Energetic Herbalism, and she is part of Sacred Plant Traditions in Virginia. So definitely look her up, get her book. She's wonderful. What to eat, how to eat. I spoke a little bit about bitter flavor, but in moderation supports the heart. The associated color with summer, with the fire element, is red, right? Like red, our blood, hibiscus, red fruits. So choose cooling foods to help mitigate heat in summer. Um, those of you who have participated in renewal or been with me in Moon School know that the best way, right, is to go to local farmers markets where the local people are actually bringing what they're growing. And having it come from the local soil is also very nourishing for our microbiome, for our guts. Um, and and always how we eat, who we eat with, will have a tremendous impact on our ability to digest and to assimilate the most precious essence of our food. Um, and of course, being mindful, right? Like bringing our full presence to the meal. Here's some other ideas. Some bitter greens, broccoli rabe, mustard greens, arugula, dark chocolate, cacao, coffee, red wine, moderation. Okay, moderation, and really enjoying it, right? Like, so I think if we rush through something, that also speaks to the state that we're in when we have it, when we ingest it. Pine nuts, edible flowers, like get edible flowers into your meals. Such good heart medicine. Violets, nasturtium, red buds have already gone, but red buds in early spring. I think not magnolia. What's the other one? Dogwood. I think dogwood, honeysuckle is in bloom still right now. Of course, lavender, hibiscus. Like, well, you wouldn't want to eat a hibiscus flower. You would want to make like a tea or an herbal infused water with it. Of course, watermelons, cucumbers, very cooling. Celery, excellent for keeping cool, very high in minerals, so great for blood and heart. Other supports for digestion, ginger, always amazing. Chamomile, oh, chamomile is growing right now. Have some in my garden, so you can put that on a flower, on a salad rather. Put it in just like fresh out of the garden, pop it into a teacup, pour hot water over it, a little lid for a few minutes, and then drink it. And it's just delicious. Of course, eat all of your berries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, serviceberries, mulberries, all the berries. Soon, we will have local in this region in Maryland, Virginia, Delaware. We will have our pit fruits coming, peaches, plums, etc., apricots. Yes, the earth is always offering us what we need. Okay, so before we make our tincture together, we'll just look at it is so hard to narrow down. Why narrow down what herbs are good for us in summer? So motherwort, really what the principles that we're considering when we're working with an herb, any time of year though, is like identifying several things. But one is, of course, what is the season that this particular plant comes to bloom in or comes to life in, I'll say. So in summer, like right now, what I chose to make my tincture with today is lemon balm. Lemon balm is everywhere right now. And so also I have motherwort that is flowering. Probably it would have been ideal like 2 weeks ago when the flowers are now getting a little past their full radiance, starting to fade a little. Chamomile, sorry. So you want to think about the season. And remember that the plant, when we think about energetic resonance, I'm going to make a tincture today of lemon balm, right? I actually harvested this lemon balm on the solstice, on the full moon today. So I'm going to make a tincture today that I won't be ready for at least 8 weeks. And I might not even strain this tincture until next fall. But when I take that tincture, it will be reminding my body of the expansive nature of summer. the expansive nature, the generosity, the luminosity of the full moon. Like all of that goes into the plant. It matters when we harvest it. It matters when it grows to maturity. So that's just a little bit of that. Okay. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, so some signs of heart out of balance, anxiety, depression, palpitations, insomnia, or memory or mania. And so the herbs I've listed here are generally beneficial. Always check with your doctor. Generally beneficial for supporting the heart. So I mentioned motherwort. It's Leonaris cardiaca. It's very, very bitter. If you want to work with it, I highly recommend doing it as a tincture because of the bitter nature of it. I mean, it's very bitter. It's very powerful. It's very beautiful. But making it as a tea is not at all appetizing, no matter how much honey you add to it. So there are certain herbs that lend themselves, I think, to making a tincture with. Wild rose, hawthorn, leaf. You can use the flower. You can use the berry. The hawthorn tree fruited, offered its berry. In some places, it's still offering its berry, but that was more like first week in June. But the point is, hawthorn is medicine, is summer medicine, which means it's medicine for our hearts all year. So you could have a hawthorn berry tea in winter, but it's still going to carry that signature energy of hawthorn and of the energetic resonance of summer. Lemon balm, linden flower, milky oats, passion flower, poppy, and skullcap. You can always email me. Let me just see what our next slide is. Oh, summer tea blend. Yeah. So this is a beautiful summer tea blend. Milky oats, lemon verbena, lemongrass, rose petals, hibiscus, read on and on. I like to use milky oats as the base for the tea. And then lightly sprinkle in the others for flavor and for nutrients and minerals. Yeah, so I think we'll use that as our segue into making our tincture. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And as I mentioned, lemon balm. So we have our lemon balm, and I just cut it today. So you want to use fresh. And you want to have a mason jar that is clean. One way you can clean or sterilize is to boil the jar in water for about 5 minutes and then let it cool, take it out. So you want to have your jar, clean jar. You want to have your lid. You want to have a piece of wax paper or parchment paper, especially if you are using a metal lid. So I'm just going to get my parchment paper ready. I have my beautiful friends of lemon balm. And then for tincture making, you want to be sure to use a 90 to 100 proof alcohol. So I use this Gordon's vodka. Oh yeah, this is 80. So 80 proof you can use. I don't use grain alcohol. That's a little too much. So you have your alcohol. And so I probably could have done this before, but I will now, you can cut the herbs. I personally like to break them up. It releases their oils, and so I'm just sort of wrapping them, breaking them up a little bit. And then I'm going to fill the jar. I'm going to fill the jar with my lemon balm. Beautiful. Gail is getting her herb. So I'm just like gently, and I'm talking to this beautiful herb that is giving itself. So I'm smelling lemon balm. Lemon balm is so beautiful. It's a nervine. So that's a classification of herbs that really help to soothe our nervous system. And the lemon brings a brightness. And again, harvesting it on the full moon, the day of summer solstice, also will carry that energy to me or to whomever might take this tincture, perhaps in winter, right? When we're needing to remember the warmth of summer, the expansion of summer. So I'm doing and I've got some flowers. I'm using the flower, I'm using the stem, I'm using the leaf. You really want to pack it in there. And you might also be setting an intention for this particular tincture, or infusing it with prayers, your prayers for yourself, or if you were making it for a loved one, making it for a friend, you could infuse it also with your prayers and your blessings. I'm so happy to be making this. Okay, just a few more stems. And lemon balm, in addition to what I've already mentioned, being a nervine, which means it's cooling and soothing to our body and our mind, is also very powerful antifungal. So if you have any fungal things going on, this can be excellent to take as a tincture. And tinctures, just to distinguish tinctures, say, from tea, when you're making a tea or a tisane, like taking some of the dried herbs, so teas, you'd be using the dried plant material, usually about 1 tablespoon of the dried plant material into about 2 cups of simmering to a boil water, and then put the herbs in. I dropped something, so I'm going to bend down and pick it up. Making the tea, you would drop the herbs in, turn the heat way back, and let it simmer for about 3 minutes with the lid on. Let it simmer for about 3 to 3 minutes with the lid on. And then you would take it, you would strain it, and you would let it cool, and you would drink it. So teas are beautiful, and it's a very much coming present with the tea, drinking it slowly. And a tea will not carry the same potency as taking a tincture. So a tincture being extracted in alcohol, in this case, alcohol is the menstruum, it's going to really extract the potency of the plant, minerals, phytonutrients, and the spirit of the plant in a much more concentrated way. So that's the distinction between drinking a tea and or having a tincture, medicinal tincture of that same herb. All right. Okay, it's 2:25. We're almost wrapping. This is such a sweet little one. Okay, so still got some leftovers. Maybe I will dry them. All right. So basically, we have gently packed our mason jar. Last little friends to go in. Oh my goodness. Oh, lemon balms, thank you. All right. So now for the menstruum. Yep. Woo, very strong. So what you want to do, and this is a folk method, is you want to cover your herbs completely. So jar's filling up. All right. Okay. Leave about, in this case, I'm going to leave maybe 3/4 of an inch from the top. And now what we want to make sure of, and normally at home I have chopsticks. I don't have chopsticks here. So you could use a spoon. I mean, you could use your finger if this is for you. But something like chopsticks are great, or the other end of a spoon. And you want to press your plant material down so it's completely submerged in the alcohol or the menstruum. If you're avoiding alcohol, you could do this in apple cider vinegar, and then it's considered an herbal extract in vinegar. So I'm pressing my little friends down. All right. And then once I've pressed it down, I'm going to add just a little more vodka to make sure everybody's submerged. You might want to press it down one more time. You don't want to pack it, but just simply press it down so that, again, the alcohol covers it. Then you're going to place your parchment paper. Then you'll place your parchment paper on top. And then you'll put your lid on. So I'm going to lower it so I can put my lid on, making sure that the parchment paper is covering the lid, or I should say the top of the jar. Then we will, you can either do this directly on the top of the jar, or you could make a separate label, but this is very important. You want to label your plant matter. So in this case for me, it's lemon balm, which is Melissa officinalis. And I can write where I harvested from, my front yard, and then the date that the tincture was made. So lemon balm, I'm not going to put my front yard because I know. And then the date, today's date, how cool, we've made a tincture on the summer solstice that captures this very sacred day, full moon, the luxury of the season, as well as the particular constituents of whatever plant you have chosen to work with. You can keep this in just not direct sunlight, not anywhere that's direct sunlight or particularly warm. A cool, darkish place is great. Visit it every few days. You can just give it a little. So again, making sure that all of the plant matter stays covered. It will change over time. You will see the plant matter breaking down. And you want to let it sit at least 8 weeks. You can certainly have it sit longer, but 8 weeks is, I'll say, some sort of minimum for the extraction process. And then when it's time, you'll open the lid. You will remove the wax paper, and you'll get a strainer, put it over a bowl, a clear bowl or measuring cup. Clear this out. Press down on the plant matter to make sure you extract all of the goodness. And then you can store it in a clean mason jar. Once again, label it. Label the date. At this point, label the date that you actually made the tincture. And, or you can get a dropper bottle. They even sell them at Whole Foods or Mom's. Put your label on that, and then take your medicine when you are feeling like you need it. So happy summer solstice, happy full moon. Thanks so much for listening and being here. And I am here for any questions that you have on herbal tincture making or making a vinegar extract. If you're avoiding alcohol for any reason, send me an email, fullmoonacupuncture@gmail.com. And of course, follow me on Instagram at fullmoonacupuncture. And I hope to see you soon. Wishing you a very beautiful and easeful summer. Bye, friends. See you soon.
Bye. Martha, happy summer.